Welcome back to World Crisis Radio. Webster, Tarpley in Washington, D.C. Again, keep up with all of it at tarpley.net and buy yourself a copy of Surviving the Cataclysm, your guide to the worst financial crisis in human history. That is the encyclopedia, the indispensable compendium for understanding these events, plus their historical background. Now, let's just look over to the European crisis. This is an artificial crisis very largely. It is generated by wolf packs of Anglo-American hedge funds using short sales, credit default swaps, and other tricks to create this crisis, right? To go from Greece to Portugal, Spain, but in particular now Ireland, and now in the wake of Ireland, back to Portugal, Spain, Italy getting on the list, a very large borrower, and of course Belgium, the most industrialized of all European countries, being added into the mix. Notice a tendency to let the British off the hook. And, of course, the desire is rather to eventually get it so that the crisis begins to mow down Germany and even France. It is an Anglo-American strategy based on exploiting the design flaws, the monetarist, neoliberal design flaws in the euro, but they could still defend themselves by vigorous countermeasures against speculators, banning credit default swaps, banning other kinds of derivatives, slapping a 1% Wall Street sales tax, Tobin tax, Robinhood tax, financial transfer tax on securities. Let me just mention, interestingly, this past week we had a mention of a transfer tax in an interview with Congresswoman Schakowsky on the Olbermann show. This young kid named Chris something or other from The Nation actually said that he would recommend a financial transfer tax or Tobin tax. So there we got the Tobin tax, at least onto cable TV, of some importance. Ireland has now been bailed out to the tune of $85 billion. This means that they go under dictatorial control from the international finance oligarchs ensconced at the International Monetary Fund. The head of Ireland is now no longer the elected prime minister, but it's Dominique Strauss-Kahn of the International Monetary Fund. The idea, of course, is will there be a continued panic run on those Irish banks, despite the presence of the 85 billion euro wall of money, right, $120 billion or whatever it is. It's interesting, the Bank for International Settlements, as reported here in the Financial Times of Thursday, Bank for International Settlements tells us that Irish banks have lent money to Portugal, Greece, and Spain, and they have also, Irish banks have, they are the fifth largest lender in the world to Italy, to the tune of $41 billion. That's significant. So the idea is, what would be the chain reaction consequences if these Irish banks continue to sink into bankruptcy? We're also told that as of Thursday, the yields on Irish debt have been going up. In other words, the prices of the bonds are going down, and the amount of interest you have to pay to buy them, to issue them, would go up. So after the Greek bailout of May, some stability was brought into the world of Greek government bonds. But what we're seeing is that the Irish government debt, the Irish government bonds, are continuing to suffer. So the bond yields have gone up and the prices have gone down. Spain is also under attack. Italy under attack. This is going to jump around now. But blood is in the water. The hedge fund hyenas are attacking. So you need to ban hedge funds, ban certain kinds of derivatives, Tobin tax on speculative transactions. And for countries like Ireland, obviously, a debt moratorium. You got to have a debt freeze, just like Iceland now. Every island nation in the North Atlantic now seems to be under this kind of attack. Surely, if the Irish look at it, the debt it's equivalent in the United States. If we had taken out, I think, $28 trillion of debt in addition to what we have, which is about $13 trillion. That's more or less what has happened to Ireland. This is an exercise in futility. Ireland cannot pay. Physically impossible. Can't be done. Why prolong the agony? Why not face the obvious facts right now? Repudiate that debt. Freeze it. You don't even have to repudiate it. You can just freeze it. You can say, I don't repudiate it. I just freeze it. And I'll come back to it when the depression is over. That's a debt moratorium. Countries like Argentina, Mexico, Brazil have done it. They've lived through it. Argentina, under the wise leadership of former President Nestor Kirchner, did quite well in essentially bargaining the IMF into submission, cutting the total foreign debt of Argentina by about half. So Ireland, if you're as smart as Argentina, you could do that too. You could cut your foreign debt in half, and you might be able to do more, because under these circumstances, your example might be followed, and it might become a worldwide movement. Wall Street Journal on Wednesday, December 1st, announces Europe's crisis widened. Italy, Spain see bonds sink. Portugal faces rating cut as faith in rescue ebbs. So the usual story. Investors and markets have not been reassured. Well, forget reassuring investors and markets. Let's put some of those investors in jail if they're buying naked credit default swaps for bear raids and speculative attacks on the bonds of these sovereign countries. It's time to use the instruments, the armory of the modern state to shut down these speculators. Another very obvious thing to do is to put a bear squeeze on them. If you have all these people who are driving down your bonds, you bring in boxcar amounts of short-term money, you bid those bonds up, you bankrupt those hedge funds. Of course, based on what we know now from the Fed, if you bankrupt a hedge fund hyena that's attacking you, they can run to the Fed and immediately get bailed out over there. But at least you'll be hurting them, and you'll get the U.S. screaming so that it's clear what's actually going on. So that's the European situation. This is going to go on. It won't stop. The Anglo-Americans will not stop. It's the only way they have of protecting the dollar and indeed the pound from the inherent bankruptcy of those currencies. So don't expect any truce. And again, you cannot placate, you cannot reassure a pirate who's coming after you. The credit default swap does not measure a crisis. It causes a crisis. It needs to be banned. It's not a useful tool. Obama, on the domestic front, clearly disappointing his base by his willingness to cave on this tax issue. Now, concerning tax cuts for the rich, concerning the Bush tax cuts, let me make a couple of comments. We are told by Congressman Ryan and other Republican reactionaries that the wealthy in the United States are the job creators, and if you give them more money, they create jobs. They invest in plant and equipment, I guess would be the idea. Well, fine. If that's your argument, I think it's clear we are more than happy to grant tax deductions, tax reductions to anybody, rich or not rich, but certainly rich. It helps to make this program go. Why not simply say we will change the tax code so that if you can't have a cut in your income tax, but if you go out and create jobs, and this can be documented in real production, we will then give you the tax reduction that you're looking for, something like the Kennedy Investment Tax Credit. We'll just explain this a little bit more in a minute on World Crisis Radio.